Good. Ancient Mahara here. What's one key core reason why so many people with codependency, after being ghosted by somebody with BPD or a relationship breakup with somebody with BPD, however that happens, seek after getting closure, even when there isn't any closure to find? Hoping to be hoovered, trying to reverse hoover or stealth reverse hoovering by watching your ex's social media. What really drives people to do so much of this and to want to, in many ways and at different times, confront the ex, especially a ghosting ex? What is this thing that drives people to reconnect or to want to be reconnected with an ex when everything is so painful? Well, for many people with codependency, it's loneliness. Loneliness that is more than just being alone and not liking it, but loneliness that emanates foundationally from within the wounded inner child, where the seeds of codependency were really sown. The seeds of codependency based on unmet needs or woundedness of one type to one degree or another that get in between the authentic self, creating a false self, and setting up the dysfunctional relationship, unhealthy relationship to and with self in childhood. People experiencing this depth of loneliness with codependency feel isolated, not connected to self, lacking an authentic relationship to and with self, who feel like if they're not in a relationship, that they aren't anybody, or that they're friends, or that other people will think they're strange, that being in a relationship is the measure of their worth. Without a relationship, they don't have esteem or self-worth. And another issue that goes along with this loneliness is that what really people are feeling, people with codependency who are really lonely, and maybe you've known this loneliness all your life, or you may not be aware of that yet. You may well have known it all your life. But ever since the person with BPD or the narcissist, or after these ghostings, after the breakups, etc., people with codependency really feel a deep, extremely painful sense of loneliness. Not everybody, but many. Most really. And what it really means is that you feel like, quote, I'm not worth being with, unquote. You feel like you're not worth being with yourself. It's such a deep degree of discomfort that most people with codependency really have inside of that dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship to and with self. Loneliness is one reason that people with codependency don't want to leave the relationships in the first place, the relationship with a BPD or an NPD. When it's clear that you're being really poorly treated and beyond by somebody who doesn't want to change, because people with BPD could change if they want to, if they work hard at it. But the point is, this loneliness is something that resides down deep inside. So it's not just something that people will experience after being ghosted, or a period of no contact in which you don't know if the relationship is on, off period, or going to be on again. All of the ruminating and all of the lack of closure and so many other things, but this loneliness drives people to reconnect, to put themselves in very psychologically, emotionally dangerous situations for themselves, because they just simply can't be with themselves, sit with themselves. They don't know how to be without being in a relationship. And even then, I've had clients who've described being in relationships and with a cluster B, but perhaps other types as well, that they felt really lonely in the relationship. And then it's sort of like, so look for the next person. But the problem of the loneliness might really be tethered to your childhood, and something that you need to work out in that healing and recovery journey from codependency. And loneliness often creates codependency in childhood, and holds people in really unhealthy relationships long past the point when a healthier person would have left. And I don't mean that to insult or shame anybody, but people feel really helpless with this loneliness, get very depressed. And some people with codependency are so scared of being alone that they reason that the miserable or even maybe really harmful relationship that you're in or you were in or you'd like to get back in is better than no relationship at all, which isn't really true. But people with codependency, with this deep-seated loneliness of not knowing how to be with self, feel lost, and for some people feel at points in time extremely frustrated, unable to cope, and angry, really, really angry. And anger can motivate that action of reverse Hoover, recontact, that isn't really good for you. But often anger, out of loneliness, depression, and pain, will drive people to do what is not in their own best interest to do, and what will, in a short period of time or not too long a period of time, cause the same cycle if someone gets back with the ex, and you'll come back to being just as hurt, just as devastated, just as angry, just as depressed, and just as lost with self again, without a relationship, and will do almost anything sometimes to re-hoover, or not hopefully to be hoovered. They want to re-engage. They want to try one more time. And one more time can turn into so many more times. Or a series of relationships with people with BP or NPD. And this is all being driven by the fact that for many people with codependency, they just don't feel worthy of being with themselves. They don't really know who they are. There is that false self within codependency, that sort of, to varying degrees for people with codependency, a separation from self. And what is that dysfunctional, unhealthy relationship to and with self? And then when that's going on and you have codependency, without healing and being in a recovery journey for that, without healing that, you're going to go on to seek someone who's not going to be healthy for you. But people with codependency will do that because the pain of loneliness, that isn't just about the cluster B. It goes back to childhood and the seeds of codependency. Loneliness drives people to really engage with people that either they're just meeting and going forward and missing all the red flags, or people that they've been in relationships with that they know who they are, and they know what their issues are, and they know that they're untreated borderlines or that they are narcissists, but they just can't stand not being in a relationship, and they can't stand being alone. So people that are really, really lonely, some have called it, quote, pathologically, unquote, lonely. I don't want to use that word, but are just driven to get back with the ex, or reconnect, or get hoovered, or hoover, and reverse hoover. And that is just something that is so not in your best interest. But so many people, not, so many people with codependency are really driven by this loneliness, this inability to be with self, because you don't know yourself well enough, and there is a false self in codependency as well. And this isn't everybody with codependency, but it's a lot of codependents. And people with codependency who are really lonely seem to really think more about the past. And a deeper situation is making it more than just being without human companionship. People feel, well, I'm alone right now. This is me, like it defines you, when it doesn't. Extroverts will feel a lot worse when they're alone and codependent and not having a positive, healthy relationship to and with self than introverted people will. But it can still be painful either way. There's cognitive distortions involved in this too, because you're telling yourself something about the ex, or if you got ghosted, or why it didn't work out, or who they went on to next, and what about you? And you're telling yourself a story, a narrative that is cognitively distorted about what happened. You want to be in the relationship, but you always tell yourself, you might know that to be in that relationship with X or whatever is not healthy for you, but you might also be thinking, well, I have to be in a relationship. And you tell yourself because I won't meet anybody again. And I've been hearing recently from clients with a lot of loneliness and wanting to be hoovered and or taking action to try to reverse hoover, doing things kind of half in between to try to get the person's attention to see if they will hoover or not. You know, in the world we live in today with whatever's going on, restrictions in a lot of places, perhaps another lockdown coming, who knows? People are saying, but so people with this loneliness, this not healthy relationship to and with self, with codependency, definitely are saying, well, I don't know, like I might not find anybody else, and it's so hard in this world, which it's really hard in this world today to really find somebody healthy. But before a codependent goes and looks for somebody healthy, you first have to be healthy within yourself and your relationship with and to yourself. But a lot of people are saying, but I got to get in touch with the ex, I'm going to hoover them back, I'm going to try to make it work again because it's just easier than trying to get to know somebody else. But is it really easier? It can be so incredibly rewounding. A lot of people just get really bored because they haven't found anything that they want to do when they're alone, but also it's this lack of relationship to authentic self. People with codependency are having that unhealthy relationship to and with self that is really about the false self being in between you and your authentic self. You might be surrounded by unhealthy people, and maybe you could develop closer friendships and more social support, but often people are so fixated and focused on the ex that they're just not feeling able, or like they just don't feel like they can connect with even friends they have, let alone make new ones. A lot of times people feel like they're really weak if they fear being alone. And I would say often that's more true, especially for men. And then you feel like you may feel like you're going to get judged because you don't have a wife or a girlfriend at whatever age you are, because it goes across the spectrum of age. But the thing is, there's an inability there to calm down and feel better by oneself. You know, so people with codependency, with this really deep loneliness because of this dysfunctional relationship to and with self, lack soothing skills. And so the inability to calm and feel better or to soothe yourself and be okay to be with yourself. The roots can be from, well, the roots are from something in your childhood, but they're also more immediately, what you're most aware of is that you feel abandoned, or because lots of people with codependency have abandonment issues too, and you're just in so much pain about being ghosted or a relationship breakup that doesn't make sense to you, or you're not sure if it's over or not. So really, for a lot of people with codependency and the loneliness and the feeling of need to be in a relationship to escape self, really, but people aren't often aware of that, really comes from something that you need to know more about by doing inner child healing work and in that recovery process. And then many people, when, you know, after a breakup with a person with BPD or NPD, then you're also fearing or having anxiety about now, thinking about the past, thinking about the good part of them, the cognitive dissonance. But now you might have anxiety about the future too. I mean, not only the world, etc., what's going on out there, but you might get really anxious that something will happen to you, and how will you cope with it? And what's already happened is bad enough, and people don't know how to cope with that. Loss hurts, you know, whether that person was largely not healthy for you or not. And sometimes codependents feel this loneliness, this brokenness after cluster B, which that can be that's a big part of it, but it goes back to something in childhood too. They feel a sense of no intrinsic value internally and in their world around them. Because if you're really super lonely and you need someone to come and rescue you or get back with that ex to take you away from your plight that you don't know how to be with you, then other people may see you as a drain on them. Like even if it was a codependent with a person without cluster B. So, you want to have something to offer and you want to give and rescue and help the person with borderline personality or narcissistic personality. You want to keep trying to change them and rescue them and fix them and externalize out this uncomfortable inability to self-soothe and not having a healthy relationship to and with yourself that drives for so many this loneliness that is so deep that it's often called, quote, pathological, unquote, loneliness, which I don't like to pathologize anything because I don't think that's where we find solutions. People often feel useless. They're very harsh on themselves, feelings of guilt, all those questions about, well, if only I said this or did that, those things that aren't the reason why cluster Bs just leave or break up or take off. Or so it's really important to know that you need to get in your own healing recovery journey, because if you don't, you're gonna be ending up with, if not the X or the on off again person with cluster B or BPD or NPD, you're gonna end up with the next person with BPD or NPD, because you don't know how to be with yourself, how to sit with yourself, how to soothe yourself, how to really be authentically yourself, because there's a false self in the way. There's a wounded inner child there. And now you've been really hurt and wounded by somebody with BPD or a narcissist, and it's just triggering you back, and you might not be consciously aware of this yet, to something from your childhood. So loneliness is a real driver for people that will reverse Hoover or try to provoke a Hoover from the ex and want to try again and want to go around again, because the only thing you can think of is that how you feel right now hurts too much. So that makes it seem like getting back with that person who continually hurt you is the thing to do. Of course, there's no rationality in this. It comes from a depth of emotions that people haven't learned how to skillfully cope with. So if you're somebody with codependency after and you're an ex of a borderline or a narcissist, or on and off again, or maybe in the off cycle, and you want to Hoover, reverse Hoover, or you're hoping they'll Hoover you, or you're kind of not no contact and there still is contact, and you really want to try again, just know that what you really need to do is find yourself, learn to like and love yourself, and do the inner child healing, the family of origin work, the self-differentiation work, to be able to have a healthy relationship with yourself first. Because if you don't have a healthy relationship to and with yourself first, how can you really expect to have a healthy and prosperous, healthy, balanced relationship with someone else?